to allow 2023 to kick you in the face, or you have the ability to kick it back. Today's episode is going to have a very special guest who happens to be the head coach of Team USA Taekwondo, and he's also a 21-year mortgage specialist. This episode is going to be fire, you guys. Stay tuned. This is going to give you the right winning mindset for 2023. The big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and this is the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Imagine this, stepping into an arena in which your goal is to punch and kick the other person into submission. That is the exact experience. And not only this individual has done at such a level that he's the two-time world champion, but he's also, again, the head coach of Team USA and a 21-year mortgage specialist. I'm thrilled to have on the show today, Arjun Dhingra. Arjun, such a pleasure to have you here, my friend.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate you, man, and all that you do for our space and community with this podcast. It's a huge resource. But thanks for having me on, and I very much appreciate the kicking references because I'm always trying to loop that into anything I talk about.
You know, I think it's the perfect time because if agents are not careful, if they don't have the right mindset, they will walk out of 2023 feeling like they got kicked in the teeth, like absolutely submitted, right? Whereas if they have the right winning mindset, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today, agents can actually leave 2023 on top with their hands in the air, victorious, realizing like that was a big competitor and I beat them, and I beat them in a big way. So anyway, super fun. Excited about this episode. I think you're the perfect guest to walk us through this. So appreciate it, Arjun.
No, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Let's do it. Let's talk a little bit about your story again. So prior to being Team USA head coach, which is your current role, together with being a 21-year mortgage advisor, you were obviously at the highest level a Taekwondo competitor. Talk to us a little bit about how that came to be. Like, at what age did you start, and maybe even kind of how that journey progressed?
Yeah, I got started when I was 8 years old from watching the very first Karate Kid, which some of you now might be familiar with because of that Netflix series Cobra Kai, which has got all the original cast members in it, but it dates me. But yeah, that's when I got started. I watched that and I related the character because I got bullied at school quite a bit, much like the main character of that show. And so I begged my mom to put me into a class. She did. And she had no idea. I mean, she just looked through Yellow Pages, which that dates me as well, right? I'm 44 years old, so we've never heard of Yellow Pages. Before Google, that's how we found numbers. So she looked up, karate classes, and there was a YMCA class, and that's where she took me. Ended up being Taekwondo, but we didn't know the difference. And the rest was kind of history. I started competing internationally in 2007 because at that time they just opened it up for people of my rank. Prior to that, most people that got to my rank were too old to compete, but they were starting globally to get more and more younger people in their mid to late 20s that were achieving that rank. So they said, why don't we open up this category or this division? And so I saw it as like, hey, that could be really cool to finally go represent my country and do what I've seen done in movies or watching the Olympics. And so I went out for it. And yeah, it's been an amazing, amazing ride. And I retired in 2014 at the third World Championships that I competed in. And that was it. I kind of rode off into the sunset after that.
Man, at some point you had to get comfortable of standing in the ring, realizing that person across the way wants to inflict pain upon me.
Yeah. So one full disclaimer here. So I competed in what are called patterns. I coach all of our fighters, but there are 4 sections of the World Championships in Taekwondo that take place. There's breaking, there's specialty, which is a little bit more of a skill set of breaking, like jumping high or jumping long. And there's patterns. And then there is fighting. So I competed in the pattern section, which if you want to think of it as almost like kind of like a gymnast, but in the all-around section. Okay. So if you look at gymnasts that compete in 1 or 2 particular categories, they could be excelling at that. But then there's that category of all-around gymnast, which is like a bunch of them. And patterns is similar to that because you're graded and critiqued and scored in so many different areas, but you don't have to be amazing in all of them. You just need to excel. So it's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of conditioning that's involved. It's extremely mental, but it's about execution. And that was my game. But I was very much into that type of psychology and the whole cerebral competition that goes into that.
What a cool story. How do the lessons that you take from that, how do they apply to a market like this?
Well, it's preparation. So for all of us, the thing that people need to realize, depending on how long you've been in the business, some people may have gotten into the industry during COVID, during, the bull market, which bull markets do nothing other than give you a false sense of security. They reward you if you're prepared. And even if you're not prepared, you can still ride that wave and do well, but they give you a very, very false sense of security in thinking that you are somehow this secret sauce, or you are the magic that's making all of this happen, when in reality, you're not. If we look very closely and vulnerably and are honest about it, homes and mortgage products sold themselves over the last several years, especially during COVID. We were just facilitators, order takers, which is why service levels really dropped, which is why you had capacity issues at every bank and brokerage across the country. Real estate agents were in it. I mean, it was just too chaotic. It's not like anyone got stellar service or amazing advice and guidance. It was all about speed of transaction. But along that way, a lot of deals get done, a lot of deals get closed, people make good money, they rack up a lot of awards, and the numbers look really good. And then you get this false sense of security. And then about a year ago, which is when this all really started, the shift, because inflation started becoming a household name, mortgage rates started ticking up. Some people got jabbed, some people got punched really hard in the face. And then it kind of continued. And then this ended up being a year of people scratching their heads and looking in the mirror and wondering, like, was I really that good? And these are good questions to ask, because I've been in the industry 22 years. I've ridden through a few cycles, including '08, which were really, really dark times compared to the present. For those of those of you that weren't in the industry at that time and are now looking at this as kind of your first big market shift, which it is, and I'm not underscoring that at all. It's a shift, but I can just tell you from relative terms, it was nothing like '08. So for people that made it out of '08's mess and those tough waters, you can do this if you do have the right mindset. But you've got to recognize and start asking some of those hard questions of what it is you bring to the table. And I'm sure that's what we're going to kind of get into here a little more, Justin.
Yeah. And I think just to support what you said there, I have agents who went through 2008, 2009, and they said, Justin, in all honesty, those are some of my best years. Now, these are agents that had the right mindset, they had the right patterns, they had the right disciplines, but they said because it became so less crowded, I just put my head down and got to work, didn't worry about all the noise, and just really focused on offering, number one, having the right mindset, number two, having the right practices to go find the clients and then serve them at the highest level. And I realized that there wasn't a lot of competition because everybody had different expectations of what it was supposed to be at that point. And I didn't have those, I didn't carry those expectations into this. I said, okay, this is a new year. This is a new set of circumstances. I'm going to go create value wherever I can find it. And they had some of their best years. So if people can say that during those dark years that you're describing, Arjun, imagine what they can do in these times, right? Where it's similar in the sense that people are licking their wounds and they're so worried about what they've lost as opposed to who needs help. How can I serve them? How can I bring great value to people?
There's tremendous opportunity in this, right? Like the market is what the market is. It's all what we make of it. So you're going to have a massive exodus of agents and lenders to the tune of roughly 600,000 across the country that are going to exit this business in probably the first 2 quarters of the year. That's a lot. But what is that? Is that a sign that the market's crashing? The media would paint it that way and lead you to believe that, which is why there's so much fear peddling going on. But I see that, and you should see that as that's a decrease in competition, which means there's more opportunity for me because market share is also relative. The pie may have shrunk, but the competition is also shrinking. So relatively speaking, we're still fighting for the same market share. May not be in the same number of transactions, of course, but again, it's all relative. So you have to really see this as an opportunity. And if you do the work, and like Justin was just stating, right? Like if you put in that time and apply yourself and get back to fundamentals, get back to basics, and actually start doing what maybe you were originally trained to and forget about the easy times and actually really slog through this, you can set yourself up for not only massive success, but real longevity, and that you can ride out any market, because this is what's going to make or break a lot of people. So you decide whether you want to be one of those makers or breakers, and then just do the work.
I think you threw out a really interesting clue there as well, is that there's a lot of fear peddling going on. The media sells advertising, right?
Yes.
They're not necessarily giving the most accurate depiction of what's happening out there. They're looking for the most sensational things that are happening, and then they're building stories around that. And if you read carefully inside the stories and even go look for supporting data, you'll find that the headlines that most people are reading are a sensationalized one point out of that story, as opposed to being the full picture. And so one of the ways I believe to really set yourselves apart, to set ourselves apart, is to read the whole story, go looking for supporting data, look what's actually going on, create your own analysis, so that while everyone else is running for the hills, you're able to actually meet with clients that need to buy and need to sell, to actually give them a full picture, which they don't have a full picture. They're getting it from other agents, and they definitely are getting it from the headlines. And so I think one way to really ground yourself, that this isn't just a feel good, pump myself up, play loud music, excited, go do it, go make the calls. No, that's not it, right? Maybe you need to do a little bit, but the most important part of this is that you're actually going to lead people. People need leadership like never before. And right now, if you recognize that the media source that they have are, number one, there's so many of them, they don't know what to listen to. And they don't have anybody really acting as an advisor to help them interpret what's really going on for their specific situation. When you do that, there is no competition. There are no agents. And there's a whole bunch of people that need your help. So now you're someone in a blue ocean as opposed to a red, bloody competitive ocean.
Right. It's a low bar, and you just have to see yourself differently now. For the longest time, everyone's thought of themselves as a realtor first, and then kind of everything else second, and sometimes nothing else. But you need to think of yourself as an informant first, and then an advisor, whether it's real estate or mortgage. You are an informant. So be the one who's informing, who's clarifying, who's demystifying, who's telling the truth, who's adding the clarity and being calm. You'd be so surprised, right? Like how attracted people are to that, even if you just change your tone. Yes, negativity sells and fear peddles, and it gets clicks. But when you recognize that that's the motivation, if you take the opposite side of that and interpret things a little better, disseminate the information more clearly and tell people, look, it might have said this, but here's the real truth, or here's what's really going on, or here's what that means to you. You would be amazed how many people gravitate towards that because they want an alternative. People don't want to live in fear, but it's all that's being peddled to them. So they're staying in that circle. You just kind of come in there with a little bit of a light and you be something else and be a light. Actually take that and be it. People will be attracted to your message, to what you're saying, and you can build immense community and following that way by just simply being different.
You know, that's beautiful, Arjun. I think if there's a few practices, right? I think about you getting to the Taekwondo at the highest levels, right? There were certain practices and patterns that you had to have. And I think one thing that we can all learn from you, not just at excelling at things outside of real estate, but within real estate, right? Having a daily practice of studying the market and looking to find out how this impacts people. One thing that we teach our private clients are find one metric that you're really interested in, interpret what does this mean? Simplify it down as if you're teaching fourth graders. And then lastly, tell a human story of how that has impacted somebody that you served and how you help them to navigate through that. Those three principles, just looking for that every day to then go out when you contact people. It's not just like, hey, how you doing? You know, like small chat. It's like, hey, I want to give you some real-time information on the market, right? Just even the clues that you gave as to how to get people's attention quickly, which is here's what's really happening. Right. Here's how this impacts you. Those are some great lead-ins. Like I've been studying the market and I know you and your family and your goals. Let me tell you how this impacts you. Just saying that, people are like, oh my goodness, somebody can tell me the truth about this. That's powerful.
It's extremely powerful. Just stop selling. Yeah. So many agents and lenders, because of the way the curriculum is and the training when we get started, we're told to sell. And then things are sensationalized, right? Like Glenn Ross, like movies that you watch that are about real estate and sales, or like, you know, it's forcing the information down people's throats. That's not really the way selling works. Selling in this market now in 2023 is about connecting. It's about reassuring. It's about clarifying. And sell is not even anywhere near any of those sentences. You just have to provide value, give value, be the light, you know, be the reason, and lead people, step into the microphone and speak to things that they're concerned about. Some agents that I, talk to are always like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what topics to bring up. You don't need to think about anything. If you actually just put on the ears and the hat and the face of the end user, the consumer, it's pretty easy to figure out what it is that they want. You can just research what it is that they're most afraid of, right? Right now it's housing bubble, recession, housing crash, overinflated prices. Is it a good time to buy? There's 5 key main topics that are on the minds of just about every buyer or client out there. Pretty much. If we sample 100 people, these 5 will be the most prevalent right in there. There's your topics. Speak to it. If people come into your restaurant wanting hamburgers, don't serve them burritos. They're asking for hamburgers. Too often we kind of get in this mode of wanting to talk about what we want to talk about and what makes us feel smart. And I spent the first 2 years of my content strategy doing just that. The problem was it misconnected. It made me feel good because I felt confident talking about those things, but it wasn't gaining any traction. And it took me 2 years to figure out it's because it's not what they want to hear. It's what I want to say. So kind of, you have to take a little bit more of a humble approach to it. But if you do that, you'll connect with so many people because people have their hand in the air with serious questions and serious fears, mainly because it's being peddled to them and there's no alternative of information. So just be the alternative, give them what they want, give them what they're seeking, and you will make huge inroads of building trust with community.
I love that, Arjun. I think one of the things, just kind of down that same path, like a real tactical example of how to do this, right? When you're trying to speak to what people are caring about, but it's like, what is it that they're caring about? Just think back to the last conversation you had with clients. What were they asking you? And, or if you can't remember that, or it's been a little while, go on your social media story on Instagram, right? And post a question. What real estate question do you have right now? What's your biggest concern with the real estate market? And just get feedback, just collect data, and then speak to that. By the way, if you're not yet following Arjun Mortgage, go do that now. He's somebody who you're definitely going to want to follow. Stay following on Instagram. Somebody who is eager not to use social media for its proper purposes, which is to gather information, to know how he can serve people, and then also to make real life connections. So again, do that before we get too deep into this. Arjun, take us back to your training, right? Back to reaching the highest levels, world champion, right? There were times, I'm sure, where you didn't want to do it, right? Where it was hard, it was difficult. How did you get yourselves through those moments? Because right now we're all kind of on this honeymoon phase of a new year. It's like New Year 2023. We're all going to the gym. We're all doing the things we should be doing, right? It's like still feeling really good. It's going to come a point here where that motivation is going to wear off and we're not going to feel as good as we once did. How did you get through that? Because world champions, they can't allow that to happen, right? That, like, you don't get to that level by being super sporadic in your activities, in your preparations. So what do you do at those moments where you don't feel like doing it? How do you overcome that?
I think New Year's resolutions, goals that we have as professionals or as sales advisors and then athletes, the easiest tendency is you set out this goal with no true plan of how you're going to actually embark on it. You might think there is one, but you haven't really truly defined it. You haven't spent that time. So you set the goal and you kind of put it out there, and then you just expect to gravitate towards it and not expect that there's going to be struggle, and not expect that there's going to be, or anticipate that there's going to be some really tough times, lack of motivation, other circumstances. And this is why people fail at them, right? This is why New Year's resolutions fail. This is why, as Justin just stated, right? Like, everyone's on a high right now, right? But the gyms get a little quieter around late February, early March. There's a reason for that, because there was no real true plan to stick with it. It was just a fleeting moment. It was a moment of excitement that dissipates, and that's what happens. But the truth of the matter is that there's no changing of the clock and changing of the year that is supposed to just suddenly magically make things happen. The way you do it, and this is a big reason why I don't actually make New Year's resolutions, I just do them monthly, weekly, daily, right? Through your own self-committed process and discipline. Is just win your day. Just focus on process, break things down. Yes, you might. I'm not saying don't have goals. It's okay to have goals. So when I was competing, yes, I would have a goal that I know that when I'm at my best, there's nobody in the world that's going to be better than me, which means I fully expect to win. Now, in order to do that, in order to make sure that that is a reality, I have to be as prepared and ready as possible. How am I going to do that? Now I start breaking things down. I have to systematically attack every day, each opportunity in the gym, each opportunity in the dojang, each opportunity where I'm taking time out to read or journal as a moment to get better, even just one tiny bit better. And as sales professionals, when we go to work, especially during challenging markets like this, don't think about how am I going to, and it's easy to, I get it, right? We need to figure out where our next deal is coming from, how we're going to pay our bills, whatever, but just stop, detach from that, stop attaching yourself to the outcome and break things down. What am I going to get done today? How am I going to get better today in the office or at the co-working space I go to? What area am I going to improve upon? You start stacking days like that together. Now you've got some winning weeks. Winning weeks turn into winning months. And before you know it, you've had a pretty darn good year. But when you're so fixated on what everything is going to look like December 30th of this next year, but no real true process to get there, you'll just end up disappointed, which is why gyms make so much money in the first quarters of every year, right? They know that. They tap into that. That's not by accident. They're fully aware that you're going to do it and you're probably not going to stick with it, which for them is great because then their equipment doesn't get worn out as bad. They don't have to make reinvestments, and then they do great. They get a surge of money in the early part of the year and they're able to ride it out and do it again next year. But if you want to be different, you need to break things down. And that was very much my approach as a competitive athlete. Every day was just about getting better. And yeah, there would be some days where it was hard. There were setbacks, or there would be an injury or something nagging or just general fatigue. You power through it and just find the one area. Did I get better? And maybe there was a day where I'm like, no, you know what? I don't think we really did improve much today. All right, good. Be honest about it. Let's do it again tomorrow. And breaking things down like that, I think, is just a healthier, systematic approach. So you can apply that and translate it into your business as well.
Super interesting, Arjun. I think kind of what you've shared with us is something I realized some time ago, which is we can hide behind an annual goal because we always feel like there's time to recover, especially in January. It's like, you know what? That first week didn't go quite as well, but it's okay. There's still 51 weeks to go. I'm still okay. Whereas when you set a goal for, like you said, the month, the week, the day, what our clients do is we do 12 week sprint, like quarter at most, right? And then work backwards. All of a sudden the days matter a lot more. All of a sudden I can't hide behind, well, Q4 will probably save me. Q3 is usually my better, but no, like we have a goal right now. And I feel like that's the mindset, the winning mindset of a world champion, is that there's no hiding behind these long-term goals. There's no hiding in them. We set shorter term goals based on lead measures, based on the activities and the patterns that I need to do to win now. And that becomes the sole focus of how do I win today, which I love that jewel you gave us. How do I win today? Forget about like the year will take care of itself. The quarter will, the month will, the week will, everything will take care of itself if I win today. And I wake up every day with that in mind of like, what does it look like to win today?
That doesn't feel so insurmountable, right? Like when we get excited about setting a goal that I'm going to be in the best shape of my life, that's probably the number one. Like I'm going to be in better health by the end of the year. That sounds good, but getting there is like tough and it's even hard to think about. And then to your point, Justin beautifully stated, you put it off or you feel this like sense of complacency because you've got time, right? It's that the goal doesn't have to be realized till December. So, all right, January was kind of a wash and things didn't go so well, but I'm going to get it back on track here in February. And then you start adding that up. But when you got to win today, there's urgency there, right? Because there's the days, the clock's ticking, right? The finish line's approaching pretty quick. We can see it. And you focus on that. It puts a very good and healthy bit of pressure on you to get it done that day, to win that day, as opposed to thinking so long-term out. Because again, back to your original point, you fall complacent to that, right? It's very easy to just be like, it's all right. And I got next week, I got next month. But you can't say that in the day or within those hours of the workday. You got 8-9 hours, however long it might be that you're in the office or behind the desk or, behind a camera to get something done as a task. You've got to do it. So I think that's just healthier pressure and good. And and remember, above all, pressure is privilege. So I would always say that when I was in, when I was in the dojang and working out on a Friday night when all my friends would be out doing other things and the gym was completely empty and I'm in a big aerobics room going through calisthenics and sweating and not really having a good time. But look, I'm in a privileged position of representing my country and getting this chance to do something that athletes dream of. And there's pressure attached with it, but above all, it's a privilege to be able to do it.
Man, let's dissect that a little bit more because I feel like that's something that we discount, right? This pressure is a privilege. Like the fact that we're in this industry that has the ability to make a lot of money, to give us a lot of time freedom. Just the fact that we have that at our disposal. Might not be perfect market conditions, but what are perfect market conditions anyway? I would venture that these market conditions are better than anything we'd find in Venezuela, better than anything we'd find in, in some of these other countries where there's no real opportunity to do what we're doing or limited, right? Like we are in a very privileged position and you all of a sudden take into consideration just how good we have it here and how much opportunity there is.
Big time.
And all of a sudden the work, like you're describing, doing all this work by yourself in a gym, instead of it feeling like a punishment, all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I'm still in the arena, right? I still have the chance to go compete at a high level and give myself a better chance than 99% of the people that live in this privileged
Absolutely.
country, right? That's phenomenal.
It is. No, it's a gift that people really do take for granted. And even, even relatively speaking, compared to '08, right? For some more context for people, this market, you still have buyers, you still have loan product, you still have liquidity. Banks are so much better capitalized and positioned right now. Their balance sheets are so much healthier. In '08, there was no loan product. There wasn't even compensation in many ways because they were reforming it and how mortgage professionals were going to get compensated. Realtors were pretty much left untouched in that. But for lenders, like we didn't even know how we were going to make money. There was one product pretty much that any bank or place offered was a 30-year fix with absolutely stellar credit, stellar reserves, and and a high enough down payment. There was no creativity. Like everyone needed to fit into a very tight box. Right now, everything's out there. There's more product out there in the marketplace during this market shift than anything compared to previous market cycles that have gone up, down, or sideways. So what does that tell you? That means that banks, that means that investors, that means that the capital believes housing is fine as an asset class. So this is really more about our mentality and our attitude and our approach, more so than it is the market. This market is ripe with opportunity if you choose to see it that way. And it doesn't take a lot to separate, really, because so many people are just, let's just be honest with the industry, have either gotten lazy or complacent because of the last few years. They don't know what to do or where to go. You just make a little bit of effort, you'll start to separate. You make a lot of effort, and you can really capitalize and take advantage of that market share that's out there, because it is all there for the taking. There's still buyers. There's still product to move. People need shelter. That's never going out of style. It's not like we're selling a certain piece of technology that kind of comes and goes. Like it's housing, right? Or capital, right? Like that never is going to go out of style. So take a deep breath, relax, stop making it the end of the world, and just go out there and do the work, because it's there for the taking.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom. What you just said right there is that we spend so much time worrying about the what ifs of the future,
right?
That we could reallocate, reinvest that time, that energy, that effort, that what would be concern into proactive effort now, right? Bring it back into the present. Go serve people now. I think some of the most unsuccessful people in the world are always worried about, like, how is this going to impact me in the future? And so they get caught and paralyzed by that. Whereas some of the most productive and successful people realize, like, okay, if there are concerns in the marketplace, that means I get to go solve them. There's more concerns to solve. There's more people that need my help. There's more people that need me to stand up and be the leader that I know I can be, to help guide them through these times. And you'll get compensated for that. Yes. So don't think the sky is falling. Like, the clouds are lifting. Now's the time you're needed. Don't shrink. Rise up. It's time.
Yep, exactly. No, perfectly said, Justin. Step into the mic and speak.
Yeah, it's time. Arjun, I'd love to kind of wrap up with this. You're a big thinker, right? You don't get to the levels in coaching, in mortgage advisement, in just overall performance, within your sport, without thinking bigger. And that's the theme of our show. That's the theme of everything we do, is helping people to wake up to the potential inside of them, so they can go on to live lives of incredible impact. Talk to us about what you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your possibilities. What does that look like for you?
I think the approach, or the saying that I have with this, is that, look, if you aren't in service to others, you won't be in business, right? You have to be in the business of being in service to others. So, and that sounds maybe a little simple or cliche, but there's real power in it if you stop and evaluate it. And I think for all of us, it's all about not just serving people in terms of, like, okay, well, I give great service. I go above and beyond for my client. That's the floor. You should be doing that. Otherwise, get out of the industry, right? And if not, the waters will kind of flush you out. It's how is it that you can make your experience for a consumer so much different? And this is something I geek out over a lot. I'm doing it constantly because I know we can always make it better. And I think for all of us as real estate individuals, especially when we recognize who the fight and the competition is actually with, it's about making a better experience. There's a race to the consumer right now between all of us as individuals and professionals and fintech. Fintech is backed by billions of dollars. So they've got a huge head start. Think of all the disruptors, right? The discount brokerages, the e-lenders, the I-lenders, whatever you want to call them. All these companies to get into these devices and get into these brains instantly like that to take business. So how do you compete with that? We have these devices and we have our brains and we have our legs, right? Which means we need to run hard and actually provide value and truly, truly be in the service of providing something, because if not, then people will go with the alternative. So I think taking on that mindset of how can I make this experience better for my consumers and really evaluate it. Every time you close a deal, meet with your team or talk with your team leader, talk with your coach, talk with Justin. I know so many of you are coached by him. Figure out how could I have made that even a little bit better, and continue to fine tune it. Because if you've got raving fans and people that are lauding the experience they have with you, you'll be able to outlast this huge technological beast that we're all competing against. But if you don't innovate and you don't figure out ways, then you end up like the taxi industry, right? You want to talk about an industry that was complacent and flat and just kind of rested and didn't do anything innovative. New kid on the block comes in, punched in the chin, on their heels, never recovered. So you can do it, but you got to be thinking about how can I make this experience better? Because honestly, I don't think, like in hindsight, the taxi industry would have lost as much market share if the consumer was actually coming first. But it wasn't, right? We sat in cabs that smelt bad, or that you sat in gum. I mean, it was like a terrible experience, but it was one that just got a little bit too complacent. So in your business and how you approach things, be in service to others 100%. Overcommit on that and try and fine tune your consumer experience so that everyone is loving every bit of value that you give. They love every step of the journey, and that there's no technology that could ever replace it. If you do that, you've got something that's built to last.
I love it, Arjun. What beautiful words on taking bigger thinking to put it into very tactical strategies that you can implement right away. Such a pleasure to have you here again. Thank you for your service to our country and helping us shine on the world stage when it comes to your particular sport. Thank you for dedicating yourself as a two-time world champion to be able to come in and share these lessons that apply directly to our industry at a time that we need it most. We're grateful for you, and appreciate you coming on today.
I appreciate you having me on, brother. And thanks for all you do for the community as well, brother.
You bet. And to everybody listening out there today, my final request is this: go think bigger. Arjun, thanks again for helping us do that today, my friend.
Anytime, brother. Happy New Year.
Be honest, hearing good ideas is not enough. You have to apply them in order to get the results desired. If you found value in today's episode, then you're really going to love the community of big thinkers and high achievers that we are building in order to help you to apply the principles taught today. If you're not yet a member of Think Bigger Real Estate on Facebook,